I think it's just important to enjoy yourself while you're traveling here, but also um, think what you might have as like a perception of yourself if you were like in your hometown and you're getting hundreds or thousands of drunken gap year tourists or something coming through every month or year, right? The Thai hospitality has definitely started to wear thin in some of those more traveled areas for sure.
Hey everyone, I'm Tristan, and this is the Backpacker Society Show, where we hope to inspire you to travel by talking with those who've already done it, giving you their tips and insight on the places they know best, and sharing knowledge on specific travel topics so you can have more authentic adventures.
In this episode, my guest takes us around Thailand to Bangkok and Udon Thani in the northeast. We also talk about integrating with the culture and understanding the Thai mentality, so stick around and enjoy.
You're listening to the Backpacker Society Show with your host, Tristan.
Hey guys, for the Backpacker Society, this is Tristan. Welcome to the show. I hope you've been doing well wherever you are, staying safe, maybe taking some small adventures or learning a new instrument or getting into golf like our guest today. But as always, whether you're new to the show or you've listened before, thanks for stopping by and hanging out, and I hope you'll be inspired by travel today. We've got a longer one for you today, but I think it's awesome. If you've been thinking about going to Thailand as a tourist or maybe even for a longer stay as an expat, you'll definitely want to stick around because I think some of the pointers in today's episode will go a long way in elevating your experience in Thailand in general. My guest today is originally from New Zealand. He's lived in Thailand for the last 3 years or so. He's traveled as a kid and as a young adult, and he's lived a pretty unique life and has some interesting stories to share. You can follow his adventures on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Adventures of Tits. My guest today is Manfred Tits James. And in today's interview, Manfred and we talk a little bit about his experiences as a kid traveling and how that experience was for him. He also shares some tips on Bangkok and also Udon Thani and Northeast Thailand, which a lot of people, myself included, probably don't really know much about as far as northeastern Thailand goes. So he shares some more information about that. And we also discuss integrating into the Thai culture and the Thai mentality in general. So again, for anyone who's been thinking about traveling to Thailand, even if you've been before, you'll leave with some better insight on the mentality of the people there, some helpful phrases, and basically how to act more like a local. After the interview, I'll share my thoughts on some of the points that come up throughout, specifically relating to the Thai mentality and integrating with the culture. But for now, let's stroll into our interview with Manfred. Good, man. What you been up to? It's been a while.
Recently, I guess, spending a bit of time inside, but Thailand's back to normal now, so that's pretty good.
That is definitely good to hear. I was wondering how it would be, but things are still pretty crazy on the America side of things, but it's all good.
Yeah, for sure. Life changed a little bit over here, but the main thing is I got back into golf and tried to learn the guitar, and that was the biggest changes for me, and a few less nights on Khao.
Good stuff. We might touch on that a little bit. I noticed some golf photos, so doing my research,
Okay,
of course.
Yeah.
All right, but tell me, how are you feeling? Ever done a podcast interview before or anything like that?
No, I never have actually. Never any kind of interview, so this will be a first. I'm looking forward to it.
Yes. Well, all right. If you're ready, we can jump right in.
Okay, sweet ass.
So first off, we're going to get to know you a little bit as a person, and then we'll go from there. Sound good?
Yeah, that sounds good, man.
So first question, tell me, what does it take to go from doing a work experience at 10 years old for Fresh Choice Supermarket in Picton to a few years later getting first place for the National Checkout Operator of the Year for that same chain.
Wow, is this like First We Feast or something? You've done your research there. Am I on Hot Wings? Um, yeah, that was pretty cool. I guess it was great to start like learning about work ethic and the value of money when I was so young. So unfortunately, maybe I didn't play as much sport as I'd have liked to in high school, but definitely set me up well for the later stages of life. And then, yeah, going on to win that competition was pretty cool. It was actually my second year competing in it, and yeah, I put in the extra work to study all the do's and don'ts and what they judge you on, and it my placard is still on the wall. So I actually went back to New Zealand for a visit in December for Christmas, and unashamedly just took a selfie in the supermarket with my gold placard on the wall.
So, what exactly kind of went into the competition? I wasn't expecting like a yearly thing.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool actually. It's for the parent company, which owns my supermarket and a couple other chains, the one that I worked at. But there's actually a 4,000 New Zealand dollar prize at the end of it, plus like a weekend away at a nice five-star hotel.
Hmm.
So it's three different levels. Your own store where you have to serve a customer. You know the person you're serving is judging you, and they just judge you on like how friendly you are, that you don't miss any items. They hide some items, like they'll slip stuff in between a magazine pages and stuff like that. And yeah, so you just do that at three different levels, and then when you get to the final, which is you're versing people from all over the country, then you have like a sit down interview as well, and they ask you like questions about health and safety and things we're meant to know for the job, and just your personal feelings towards the job and the company.
It's like full on, but that's pretty good.
Yeah, $4,000 was definitely worth it for a 16-year-old
Yeah,
kid. I'm not gonna turn that down.
definitely goes a long way. Well, I guess you kind of answered my follow up to that because you must have had some level of pride and enjoyment in that environment. So, but you already kind of answered what you got out of it, so it's good.
Yeah, yeah.
I want to focus on your creativity for a bit. First, talk to me about your days as MJ and your choreography and dance videos as a kid.
Oh, he's done a deep dive here. Yeah, MJ, my dance persona, I guess. Yeah, well, I remember. Actually, I still remember like the first time when I started dancing. I where I grew up in New Zealand, we didn't have a computer or internet. So I was down at the library one day using the computer there, and I came across this YouTube video, and it was these two guys doing like a techno dance. I think that they were like shuffling and doing some hard style dance to a techno track, and yeah, I just got really interested in that. I was like, oh, I want to copy that. So I remember outside the library with my friends practicing the dance over and over afterwards. And then, yeah, from there, I just got really into it. Loved Chris Brown and Usher and their music videos in those days. So then just decided I wanted to put something of my own on YouTube, and yeah, made a few videos with that.
All right. Do you remember the first song that you danced to?
First song, I'm pretty sure it's Justin Bieber "Baby," like the first one that I actually did a video to. Like remember practicing the one that I'd seen on YouTube, and that was definitely a hard style track, but I can't remember the name. I think the first one that I posted on YouTube was me dancing to "Baby" by Justin Bieber, and then from there, I remember there's one of me actually dancing in the street in Khao San Road
Yeah.
as well. So I just got some new sneakers, and I wanted to give those a whirl. So yeah, those are the days. I still enjoy dance, but I think maybe perhaps when I was younger, like you have those no inhibitions, you don't really care at all what people think, and I just went out there and did what I enjoyed. Whereas maybe now, um, I think a little bit more before I post, especially in the Instagram
Mm.
days.
No, that's fair, but I mean, it's definitely great in general to have that like no care and just do as you want. So,
Yeah, for sure.
um, I definitely saw that video though, and also I like the beach as well, so all's good.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so you've also produced a few of your own songs in the past, like Five Losses and You're Worth It. I'm curious to know, was this just having fun with a creative form of expression, or was there ever a plan for full albums or to blow up on SoundCloud or anything like that?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. I'd written poetry since I was super young, probably like 7 years old. I'd started writing poems, and then I guess the natural form of progression, those turned into raps as I got a bit older, became a teenager, and started listening to rap music. Um, so I guess I've actually still got books and books of rhymes and half completed songs that I've never recorded, and part of it was probably I was in a stage when I was recording those songs. I just finished high school. I was studying part time, but I had a lot of free time, and I was living in Wellington then, the capital of New Zealand, which is quite a artsy place. So I guess yeah, it all came together, and I felt like comfortable to explore that avenue. Um, I have thought about pursuing it more. I guess just maybe life got in the way, but yeah, at the time it was a cool creative outlet, and yeah, I just found it quite rewarding to you have the lyrics or the idea, the theme you want to explore, and then see it all come together and mixing it in and making the final product.
Got you. When was the last time you've done written some poetry?
Yeah, probably a few weeks ago, maybe last month. Yeah, I don't actually know where it is, but yeah, I was writing. I was in just a little bit stressed with everything that was going on. Obviously, with the coronavirus and the fact that even though I wasn't planning on going back to New Zealand, just the fact that I couldn't, maybe put me in
Yeah.
a bit of a compromising or stressful position. So I, yeah, just as a bit of an outlet, wrote some raps about that or some rhymes. Yeah, but not as much as I used to. Yeah.
All right. Next question. So I know, of course, you have a travel vlog, The Adventures of Tits, and also you've done a few shorts. But I noticed in your videos, even going back to some of your dance videos as a kid, that you definitely have more of a cinematic feel, and you can tell basically that your video production skills are beyond average. I know you went to school or at least did some classes for film or video production as well, but talk to me about who or what influenced that initial interest.
Yeah, well, actually thinking back to like the dance videos and what influenced me to edit those, I don't know if I actually can recall. Yeah, because I remember downloading some software to try and stitch some clips together for those. I think it was just from what I'd seen on YouTube. My father had always liked photography, and I remember I enjoyed picking up the camera when I was quite young, but I wouldn't usually take videos. That was more just I'd take the odd snap and maybe get it printed off. But when I got into more into like YouTube with the Adventures of Tips, when I was making those, I was really inspired by Casey Neistat. Probably my
Hmm.
biggest inspiration on YouTube in terms of his daily vlogs, but more than that, like his storytelling. Um, he's able to turn like a really simple concept into like a long and detailed video, and the way he sets it up is quite simple. He doesn't use any massively fancy cinematic movements or super expensive cameras, but he really tells a story in a unique way. Along with that, also Sam Calder with the more edit type travel videos really inspired me as well when I was getting more into making my travel content for YouTube. But I always remember, I think, just the feeling that watching like those summer edits of other people's on YouTube, or like the after movies of Tomorrowland or something, or Ultra, um, just that feeling of like happiness and, oh, I want to do that, I want to be in that. That kind of led me to want to make content which maybe produce the same feeling for viewers.
I definitely I think it was your year 1 year of travel video. That was, I mean, like I said, there were a few videos that I saw that had that cinematic feel, but that was the one that I was like, okay, like, yeah. And going off the feeling, or what you were talking about as far as the videos creating a feeling, you definitely hit it for that one. So,
Yeah, cheers, man. Yeah, I wanted to make that like just kind of the summary of the highlights of that first year, right? And yeah, put a bit of work into trying to tell the story of my trip as well. But yeah, I guess just going back to the previous question, like before before I started traveling um, and making travel videos, yeah, I guess just when you'd see those GoPro videos like blow up on YouTube, or someone did the star jumps around the world. I remember there was one guy, and you'd watch those, and it was like, oh, that's super cool, like seeing this person in all these different places. And even when it wasn't massively edited, yeah, just the feeling it created is pretty cool.
awesome. All right. Last question for now. Finally, in 5 words or less, describe your personality.
Outgoing, loud, uh, observant. Um, two more. Just fun, always fun, and kind. I guess I'll talk myself up there, but fun definitely. Just yeah, not caring too much is something I'm big about.
I can say that's pretty true, knowing you. All right. Let's move on. We're gonna focus now on Udon Thani and Bangkok. So I know with Bangkok, you've lived there now for over 3 years. You're doing school there as well,
Yeah,
and then you've also visited countless times as a tourist in the past. And then Udon Thani, you visited there in northeast Thailand a bunch of times, and you consider it one of your favorite areas in the country. So let's start with Udon Thani. Tell me why exactly is it your favorite area, and then we'll get into more specifics of as far as what to see and do there.
yeah. Well, I would say udon's definitely not on the. It's definitely not on like the top 10 list of places that most tourists would visit in Thailand. Even the whole northeastern region kind of gets ignored by the majority of like backpackers and travelers. So for me, the people, like the town Udon Thani itself, is pretty standard, like Thai city, but the people and the vibe there which have just been great every time I've been. Like I've made new friends every time I've been back there. The first time was actually I traveled there with my father when I was 9, I believe, and 9 or 10, and there was like a high school student on some kind of work experience at the tourist authority office, and Dad and I went into the tourist authority office just to get some information on what to do in the area. And this, I think she was like 15 or something. I was like, oh wow, she's so pretty. I want to get her phone number. So Dad was like, well, go on then. Why don't you ask? So I asked for her phone number, and they had a fair on at the town park, like town square, with like
Mhm.
merry-go-rounds and stuff like that. So I said, oh, would you like to come to the fair with me later tonight? So I I think no, I must have been 11 by this stage. I would put on my best t-shirt and pair of Crocs, and met her at the town fair that night, and we went on like the merry-go-round together and had some Thai food after, I think. And then yeah, just every time I've been back, I've always met super friendly people. Actually, I stayed at a hostel there in 2016, and the owners of the hostel were really friendly. I was planning to just stay there like 1 or 2 nights. I ended up being there, I think, like 10 days. And then we added each other on Facebook. I visited again maybe a few months later when I was doing a visa run up to Laos. It was kind of on the way. And then they invited me to their wedding. And I actually went back for their wedding in, I think, towards the end of 2017, like September 2017.
Mhm.
And yeah, they put me up at their hostel for the night. We had a big party and celebration, and that was really beautiful. And that was just from staying in their hostel.
Hostels work like that sometimes.
Yeah, yeah.
I need to go back real quick. You said you were 11. How old was the girl?
I think like 15 or something on a like a experience day from, because in Thailand they have like colleges
Yeah.
and high schools, and I think in college once after you're 14 you can decide if you want to focus on like tourism or engineering or something more like that. And I think she was focusing on like the tourism thing. Uh,
Got you. Impressive.
yeah, yeah.
All right. What are some, as far as Udon Thani, some particular spots that, if someone were to visit, should go and check
Yes.
out and see or do?
So the main highlight or the best thing that I experienced there, which without driving too far, because Udon's more of like the hub for the province, and there's some beautiful waterfalls. There's a national park not too far away, which has some nice walks through it as well. But the best one which I saw was the, I think it's pronounced like Kumpawapi, but it's like a lotus lake. You'd have probably seen some clips for it, and maybe in one of my edits. So it's like if you go there in January or in the cooler seasons like December, January, February, it's in full bloom early in the morning. So it's about a 30-minute, 40-minute drive from the city, but you can get like a Thai local bus out there or even the train. Stops as well. And then you go on this like little boat out into this lake, and it's just as far as the eye can see these beautiful like pink lotus flowers, like fully opened up early in the morning, and it literally looks like a sea of lotuses. So that was really impressive.
Hmm.
Other than that, as well, they've got like two beautiful parks right in the city center. One which has quite a big like lake in the middle, and those are really nice to walk around at sunset. There's a really good night market as well, and it has some really big festivals. The Chinese New Year festival there is really big, and there's another one which is like their anniversary, the Udon Thani like commemoration of the town, and there's hundreds of people march like in a procession through the streets wearing their traditional clothes from all the different villages around. So that's really great if you can time that as well. But I can't remember exactly what time of the year that festival is.
No worries. But so is that also around Chinese New Year? Or is that a different time?
No, I think it's a different time later on in the year. Yeah.
Got you. All right. All right. If you don't have anything else for Udon Thani, then let's move on to Bangkok. Does that sound good?
Yeah. Well, I just briefly like because Udon Thani is just one province in northeastern Thailand. So
Hmm.
Udon's one of my favorite towns, but Isan as a whole is definitely an area which I think tourists, especially those who want to get away from the tourist traps, should experience more in Thailand, because the people in Isan are some of the friendliest all over Thailand, and it's just nowhere near as touristy as Chiang Mai and Pai or even Mae Hon Son. So, like, Udon has got the national parks around it, and then Nong Khai in the north before you cross over to Laos. Like, quite a few people pass through there, but there's some interesting stuff around that town as well. Like, there's a amazing Buddhist temple with like artistic shrines and stuff, not too far from the Nong Khai city center. And then just all of northeastern Thailand has some great festivals, beautiful temples, and as well as some natural features. In Ubon, Ratchathani, they have some cool canyons as well, which no one really ever ventures out to see.
What do you think? What do you think that is? I know obviously a
Um,
lot of travelers, they have the specific typical places in mind. Is it that, or like what would you say?
Yeah, I think it doesn't get as much attention as the other places, and perhaps it is a bit more spread out. Like in Chiang Mai, obviously you can go to waterfalls in the morning and bathe with elephants in the afternoon, and then go back to the city for the nightlife. Whereas Isan is a bit more vast. It probably doesn't have the infrastructure that a lot of the other big tourist destinations have in Thailand, but I definitely think it's more real. Yeah, the experiences you have there. especially the interactions with the locals.
All right. Next time I'm back in Thailand, I'll be sure to head up there
Yeah,
instead
man.
of staying in Bangkok all the time. All right, then let's move on to Bangkok. Um, Without getting too much into your history with Thailand first, um, what about Bangkok made you say, "I want to live here"?
Well, I guess the short answer is my girlfriend. um, but the energy, just the energy. That's the reason I kept coming back. Just the pure good vibes that the city gives off. Like you get fed up with it sometimes. It's raining, you're sweaty, you step on one of those annoying bricks that squirts water out all over the other foot. But at the end of the day, just the energy of Bangkok is intoxicating.
Well, you know how I feel about Bangkok, so absolutely agree.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
let's get into some specifics. What are some things to see and do around Bangkok?
Yeah, well, I mean, Bangkok, I'm pretty sure it's the most visited city by international visitors in the world, right? According to I think it's Visa or MasterCard. So if there's a big activity to do in Bangkok, it's been written about like 1,000 times before, right? But
Yeah.
a few things that I guess maybe people wouldn't necessarily always see every time.
Hmm.
So everyone is likely to go to the Grand Palace or Wat Arun and Wat Po, which are all quite near each other, but they're all right by the river. And I definitely recommend that the best way to get to them and maybe even stay on the boat a little bit longer is to go for a ride along the river. Right, for 15 baht, you can get the orange flag bus boat, and that goes all the way down to the CBD and Taksin Bridge. But if you go up the other way, it actually goes up to Nonthaburi in the north of Bangkok, and you can see people. If you go up that far, you can see people fishing on the river, living their daily lives, and even more just houses dotted along the riverside. So I definitely recommend going for a cruise along the Chao Phraya River just to see what the greater area of Bangkok looks like.
Hmm.
Otherwise, obviously, if you're here on the weekend, Chatuchak Market is a must. But then the night markets as well. I mean, I know you've been to Ratchada or the train market a few times,
Yeah.
but definitely there's another one called Sinakarin as well, which I'd really recommend. That's further towards, kind of back towards Savannah Bhumi or the main airport, but it's similar vibes to other night markets in Bangkok, except it's huge and it has like massive amounts of secondhand and vintage goods, and great place to get some Instagram pictures, and then of course have a few beers after you've shopped all you can as well.
Hmm.
And the major things, obviously, the Golden Mountain, the Grand Palace, and Wat Po, have all been mentioned many times before. But Chinatown as well. Like if you properly get into Chinatown, there's some really cool little markets as well. Like a lot of people go to Chinatown and they just walk along the main road, which is called Yaowarat, with all the signs on it, right?
Yeah.
The gold shop or the shark's fin soup signs. But if you go into some of those side alleys, there's some really small Chinese temples or just little specialty markets. Like you might have a whole block that just sells wrench extensions or like a certain type of flour or something like that, or like dried herbs. So if you get lost in those little alleys, I really recommend it. And there's one good temple down there, what Triamit, or which is like the Golden Temple, and I think it's 7 tons. Don't quote me on that, but of pure gold. So
Mm.
like it was encased in plaster, and then it like fell off and it cracked, and then they realized, wow, we've got a solid gold Buddha image here. So that's pretty cool. Um, I don't know. There's so many things because I've been here for so long now, so it's like where to start. I love boats a bit as well, so I would also recommend going along the canal boat. So if you're staying near Khao San Road, like right by the Golden Mountain, there's that the canal boat which goes along the canal all the way. It actually goes for ages, It goes about 25 kilometers to the other side of Bangkok. Um, and these are like narrow little canals, maybe 10 meters from one side to the other. And these boats are going along there at like 30 kilometers an hour at some points, going both directions. And people are just like jumping on board. They don't really even slow down enough at some stages.
Yeah.
And yeah, just the difference you can see there when you come from the old section of town near Khao San. Then you go through like the CBD where you've got like 60-story or 50-story buildings on each side, and then you go back even into the slums on the other side of Bangkok. I think that's really interesting too.
Hmm. And you said that as well. It's 15 baht, right, or so.
Yeah, I think the most expensive ticket is 21 baht, and you'll be sitting on the boat driving for about an hour and a half. So it's definitely worth your money.
Yeah, just for reference, baht converted to American dollars is less than a dollar.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, we're talking cents, whatever it is, 50 cents. But yeah, go ahead and continue.
Other things, I guess, sky bars, it's got to be done. Although I don't know if you'd agree with me on this. I would say don't go to the Hangover Sky Bar or Labua. I think
I
it's
agree.
overpriced and overrated. Yeah.
I agree.
Um, you can get a lot better value sky bars in Bangkok, which have just as good of views for if you get there at happy hour, like a quarter of the price, or like uh, 200 baht. So what's that? Uh, $6, $7, $7 ish. You can get a decent cocktail at some of the other sky bars in Bangkok, um, which have really good views as well. So
Which one do you prefer to go to?
if I just had to pick one, I'd probably say Octave. Like if you still want that high
Yeah.
class feeling of being at a super fancy sky bar, then I'd say Octave gives that as well as really good views. But there's other ones, for example, Air Bar, AIRE, 2 for 1 cocktails. So their cocktails are like $10, but you get 2 for 1 at happy hour from like 6 to 8 p.m. And that's got really great views as well. It's on like the 38th floor, I think. And yeah, you just can't beat it for value.
I know I always preferred going to Brewski Bar. That
Oh yeah,
was always my
Brewski's good.
spot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the Radisson, is it? Radisson Blue.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
good selection of beers there as well.
Yes, a lot on tap. What do you call it?
Craft beers.
Craft beers, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't understand why. Like, I actually went to Skybar, the Hangover one, before the movie,
Hmm.
quite a few years ago, and even then it was pretty expensive. But I think a cocktail was like 400 or 500, and I've heard now that even like the cheapest beer is like way more than that. So,
Yeah, I did go once, and I think I got a cocktail for 1,000 for sure,
yeah,
something like
yeah.
so, yeah. So it's a lot
There's definitely other options which are probably better.
for sure. Let's talk about Kosan. I know you mentioned it a bit earlier. I know you love that.
Yeah, man. Let's delve right into it there. So Khaosan Road. I mean, well, it's actually I was just there recently. It's changed a lot. So over the pandemic, they've resealed the whole street, and they've put
Hmm.
like these bollards in, so like kind of barriers where which kind of separate the street where people would drive through, and then the markets on the side. But yeah, well, for those of you that don't know, Khao Road is definitely the most famous backpacker street in Southeast Asia, and I think it lives up to its name. Would you agree, Tristan?
Yes, I would agree.
Um, it's hard to explain just because Khao well, one, it's cheap, right? But two, I think it's the one place in Bangkok, especially like me having lived here a bit longer, where it's not pretentious at all. You can go there, go out on a Saturday night, wear your flip flops and your tank top, and just have fun. Whereas, like I study at university here, and it's a international uni, so there's kind of this idea that you should worry what people think. And even sometimes if you say, oh, I'm going to Khao San tonight, they'll be a bit like, oh, but that's where the low class backpackers go or something like that. But that's the thing that makes it so fun, is because you can dance drunk on the street at 2 a.m. in the pouring rain and nobody will look at you twice, right? Nobody cares at all. So I think that's the beauty of the street. If you Yeah, you can go shopping early in the day, but then at nighttime you can get cheap pad thai, dollar 50 pad thai, and yeah, just enjoy yourself, really let loose. Because yeah, living here, as I was saying, I live now near the CBD, like over in Ekamai Tongloa area. So when classmates from uni, they want to go out, you're talking going to a club, buying a bottle. Thais really love to buy bottles rather than uh, buy the drink. So, and getting dressed up and just standing around a table all night, taking Instagram selfies and worrying what the next table thinks about you. So I think that's the beauty of Khao San. You can just be yourself, have fun, and let loose.
Absolutely. Honorable mention has to go to Rambutri as well,
Yeah,
which
for
is
sure.
parallel to Kosan, just on the other side. And, it kind of gives off a different feel if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, well, Rambuchi's a great place to get started, right? Just to warm out, up for the evening, maybe, because yeah, the live music they have down there, and just the lighting, I think, as well. The way it's lit, like it's got that nice, it's a nice brick pavement. Like you can walk along; it's a walking street, and then most of the restaurant bars are like got outdoor seating with some plants or like hanging garden features and stuff like that. So it's really relaxed vibes, isn't it? You can chill there, have some cocktails. You can actually hear the person you're talking to, rather than having to scream over the top of some Latino pop music or whatever's playing in Calsan Road. So yeah, it's a great place to have cocktails, have dinner, a chat, and yeah, just unwind. It's a good place to unwind after a busy day in Bangkok or at one of the markets or something. You can just go there and kind of relax and chill out.
That was basically my stomping grounds. So,
Yeah, yeah. The the cocktail bar, with the really cheap buckets there, right?
uh-huh.
Like,
90 baht buckets. I didn't even know they actually had a name until like months later. But anyway.
oh, really? Nobody needs to know the name. It's just look
No.
for that big sign, 90 baht buckets, and you know you've arrived, right?
um, Talk to me about the bike rides around Bangkok Chow.
Yeah, Bunker Chow. Yeah, I forgot to mention that earlier. Yeah. So there's two places I'd recommend if you just want like a chill day and maybe to forget you're in Bangkok a little bit. So Bunker Chow, the first one you just mentioned, it's actually this little island, in the Chao Phraya River, which they have building restrictions on. So you can't. There's no high rises or anything, and just a few residential houses. And it's actually called the Green Lung of Bangkok. Like it's because it's shaped similarly to a lung if you look at it from like a satellite image, and it's just fully green because it's all trees there. You can actually see it from like space, like the nighttime satellite imagery of Bangkok. Like it's just all this light, and then there's this black shape, which is Bunker Chow. So you can get a boat across the river. I think it's like 5 baht or something. It's nothing. And then once you arrive on the island, they have all these bike shops at the pier, so you can rent a bike. It's like $1 an hour, and they have these pathways all around the island, and you have no idea you're in Bangkok. Once you're on that island, you can't hear the city, you can't see the city at all, and it's just jungle and rainforest, really, as far as you can see. And it's right next to the river, so it has some kind of like wetlands involved. So they're all elevated walkways. There's a really nice big park there, which has like bird watching platforms. And of course, there's a few restaurants where you can have an afternoon beer and chill out. But it's just a nice place. It's mostly shaded by the trees, so it's not super sunny, and you can just cruise around on a bike and completely forget the hustle and bustle of the city. Um, yeah, you catch a boat there from Klong Toi area, which is accessible by the MRT or the subway as well. The other one, which I would mention, is also an island, but it's north of the city. I don't know if you ever went there, if Steve ever tried to sell you a tour there, but it's Kokret, um, and you can go up there on one of those bus boats that I was talking about earlier. I think it's the
Mhm.
green flag one, takes you nearly all the way there, and then you can just get a taxi. So this is an island again in the river. You can cycle around it, but on the weekend it has a really cool arts and crafts market, and you can actually try out pottery. So that's a cool place to go spend an afternoon, maybe build a vase, or bongs were pretty popular when I go there with my friends, and then they have a craft beer bar right on the river, which they brew their own beer and cider there as well. So that's a really cool way to
Mm.
end the day. Just watch the sunset over the river.
It's pretty cool. No, I don't think Steve ever tried to sell me on that one.
Yeah,
All right. I mean, there's a ton of spots around Bangkok. Is there anything else you want to mention? I think I kind of want to talk a little bit more about downtown a little bit. I obviously you
yeah,
mentioned
yeah.
Chinatown and stuff, but what are some other spots there?
Yeah, well, I guess because downtown, it's often just seen as the malls, right? Um,
Yeah.
that's the main idea of what people think when thinking about downtown Bangkok. So obviously, there's some really nice parks like Lumpini Park and this Queen Sirikit
Yeah.
Park. Um, I would actually definitely recommend going to the park, especially if you like photography. Um, I always get the name wrong, but I believe it's Benjasiri. It's right by the Queen Sirikit Convention Center subway station, and it has skyscrapers right next to the park, and then it has a massive like lake or pond in the middle of it. So if you're there at sunset, you get a beautiful reflection of these huge glass towers in the water at the park as well. So it's makes for a really good Instagram shot.
Hmm.
Uh, Other than the parks to see, obviously Terminal 21 is a destination mall, so that's great for experiencing the different levels where they kind of the novelty set up like you're visiting a different
Yeah.
location around the world. And the food court there is great. Did you ever eat at the food court at Terminal 21?
We did. I did. Nothing too fancy. We just got snacks 'cause I know we went there for a movie one day.
Oh yeah.
So I wasn't there too long, and that wasn't the mall I would typically go to if I needed to go to the mall. But it is definitely nice, especially as you said, with the different themes on each floor as far as the country.
But the food court there is really like the food is good. I wouldn't say it's amazing, but the fact
Mhm.
that it's got like southern Thai food, northeastern Thai food, and everything all together. And it's one of the cheapest food courts in malls in Bangkok.
Mm.
So I definitely rate that. And you can like have a nice view while you eat, like out over the city. Other
Mhm.
things to do in downtown. Obviously, there's the art museum opposite MBK as well. I don't know if
Yeah.
you ever went to that, but sometimes there's some cool exhibitions going on there, which are definitely worth checking out. And they have a really good website as well, which kind of tells you everything that's going on. So it's the BACC Art and Cultural Center, I think, Bangkok Art and Cultural Center.
Mhm.
But yeah, even for me, downtown tends to be spent more inside. Although I do just enjoy like walking through soys, like the little alleyway sometimes, and you always find like a cool new restaurant or like something random that takes your attention. Downtown Bangkok's definitely more set up for inside. Yeah,
Yeah. No, that is true. It can get pretty busy, and especially the time of the year. I guess it's pretty hot all year round. It's just either hot and dry or hot and wet. So.
exactly. I'm pretty warm right now because my aircon is right next to the desk
Mm.
where I'm sitting to record this, so I didn't want too much noise association. But
I appreciate you taking the heat. I'm
cheers.
literally I'm sat in a closet that I kind of set up as a little studio, and it's up with the sound, so I understand where you're coming from. All right. So if you don't have anything else for Bangkok, are you ready to move on?
Well, it's not that I don't have anything else. It's more that I have so much that I don't know
Yeah.
where to start or like where to narrow it down. And I always feel bad when I start talking about like the cliche things to do, because as someone that lives here, you kind of feel um, a bit repetitive or something, saying, yeah, check out Khalsan Road, or yeah, the Cheddar Check Market, um, just because they're such iconic things that
Mhm.
um, probably everyone mentions. But
Yeah.
I don't know. If you've had a look at my Instagram, there's probably a few location tags of some things to check out in Bangkok. Um, Asia Teak, I mean, you went there. It's definitely
Yeah.
super
Yeah.
touristy, and I would advise that you don't go there to go shopping, like because the market is way overpriced. But it's definitely quite a beautiful place to finish the day next to the river there with the restaurants and stuff. But it's definitely on the pricier side. Oh, and the ghost towers as well. I guess I'd
Mhm.
forgotten to mention those. Um, I personally have never been up the famous like the ghost tower. Did you go up there ever?
No, I did not. I mean, I thought about it once or twice, but I know they have the you kind of have to pay someone off here and there or whatever, so I never really got into it.
Yeah, I just recently actually went to the one near Khaosan Road. There's a big building on the corner of the
The mall?
intersection there. Yeah, the mall, which usually has
Yeah.
fish in the bottom.
Yeah.
Um, I just went in there maybe 3 weeks ago, and it was quite funny actually. I was with my friend, and there was like a cleaner around the area where you need to kind of climb up a tree to get inside it. And she's like standing there, and we were kind of waiting for her, and she walked away eventually. So we went back, and then we were trying to climb up, but they'd like moved the rope that used to be there. So, so we thought she was going to tell us off, but she came over and she turned a rubbish bin upside down for us to use as a step to get up to the right level. So we were like, oh, what were we waiting for her for? In the end, she ended up helping us get inside. But that's pretty cool if you're into that kind of thing as well. And it's super close to Khalsan Road. Um, we noticed that they've actually put some barriers in there. So it looked like they might be opening it up to tourists almost, or
Mm,
just trying to put some precautions in.
yeah.
But that's definitely a great Instagram spot as well.
So you say that was your first time doing it
Yeah,
when you
my
went?
friend had been there a few times before, but that was my first time. Yeah. Did you ever go into that one? Oh.
Yeah, I mean, it took me a while to finally do it, but after I did it at least I would say 3 more times.
Yeah, it's
I
cool,
would
right?
even go by myself to yeah, I would even go by myself sometimes just to write if I felt like writing, but yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely got quite a serene vibe, like just away from everything. Yeah.
Cool. I'll add one more as far as going back to Asia Teague. And people might know about it already, but there's the Calypso Ladyboy show.
Oh, yeah, true.
Yeah, which is actually like it's family friendly. I went with some people at the hostel I was at who really wanted to go, and I was like, all right, I'll go. And yeah, like I said, it's very family friendly. There were Thai families there with their kids and watching the show, and it's not it's not Broadway level, but
Yeah.
you can tell that the girls are definitely enjoying what they're doing, and it's just a fun time. So that's
Yeah,
something you can check out as well.
yeah. Forgot to mention that, but that's definitely I've been there once as well, and it's not what it sounds like. It's really interesting, and it's cool to watch, and then when they come out to take some selfies at the end, that's that's always fun as well. Um, but yeah, it's family friendly as you said, so it's just a good vibe. Yeah,
All right, for now, let's move on because we could probably talk about Bangkok all day.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
All right. So now we're gonna get to know you as a traveler a little bit. Real quick, I'm just gonna go through the list of some of the places you visited over the years. Obviously, you've traveled around New Zealand, being from there, Australia as well. You've done a lot of Southeast Asia, Thailand, of course, before you started living there. Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, Malaysia, Myanmar. Anywhere else that I might be missing?
Oh, Singapore as well, but yeah, just all in that Southeast Asia region. Yeah, I was always planning to make it to Europe at least, and then the States probably, but I got stuck here, kind of.
I know the feeling.
Yeah, man.
But but okay, so you've gone to those places. What's interesting is that you've done a lot of those travels in Thailand, especially as a kid in your teens, as you kind of alluded to earlier. And you also mentioned you liked boats. You also grew up on a boat. I don't want to assume anything, so I'm just gonna ask. Talk to me about your time on the boat. Did that actually play a large part in your travels as a kid in general, or were you actually still based in New Zealand or a singular location and just happened to live on a boat?
Yeah, good question. So yeah, we didn't really do much traveling on the boat to a wider extent, but yeah, based in New Zealand, where we lived, um, it's like a sound or a fjord. So definitely every Friday afternoon, once I got home from school, it was on the boat. Like the boat was moored, but it was onto the boat, and then we'd head out to a different cove, a different bay, and we'd go fishing all weekend or swimming, kayaking and stuff like that. So definitely shaped my upbringing, but it wasn't involved with the traveling so much. The traveling was more just my father used to live in Thailand in the 70s, so he just always had this love for the country and wanted to bring me back to show me the place where he used to live as well.
Got you. I'm sure most people they might hear, "Oh, you grew up on a boat. You must be going around all over." So good
No,
to know.
yeah, just kind of I think the longest we actually stayed on the boat without coming back to port though was like a month, but it's all in like sheltered areas and a fjord. So super cool experience, just fishing and enjoying life. But
Mhm.
yeah, unfortunately, our boat wasn't quite big enough to make the journey over to Australia or Asia.
Got you. And was that Milford Sound by the way, or
No, it was the Marlborough Sound, so at the top of the South Island of New Zealand. Yeah.
all right? Talk to me a bit and share a story or two if you can about some of your experiences traveling as a teen or kid. You kind of mentioned mentioned something about it before, but like what were some freedoms that you might have had, and what kind of things were you getting into at that age?
I there's a few short stories I can't share for sure, but yeah, I think so. One thing never fell behind at school. So I spent about 2 years traveling in Southeast Asia with my father. And um, I think the second year I did one maths homework book for the whole year away. That was my schoolwork for that year, I think, apart from keeping a diary. But I'm a really big believer that traveling is some of the best education that someone can get, right? Just the
Yeah,
experiences of interacting with people, because most people aren't traveling at the second trip. I was 13/14. So obviously, in the evening, you're at a hostel or something, you're downstairs. Most of the travelers there are going to be a lot older, maybe 18 through to 40 or whatever. So I was having conversations with people well older than me and learning things from them and sharing ideas, which I think really broadened my perspectives of the world a lot, like at that young age. Um, I'm trying to think of a couple of good stories to share. I think, well, one was when I was 10, we went to Phnom Penh in Cambodia, and my father wanted me to kind of understand what the country had been through. So we went out to the killing fields, and some people would say like that's a bit too young, a bit too shocking, but I still remember that, and it kind of definitely taught me some things about what humans can do to each other and how we can maybe learn from the past and look forward to what we can do as a whole to be better. So I definitely appreciate the chance to experience those kind of things at a young age. Similarly, in in Kanchanaburi, just what is that, northwest of Bangkok, where they had
yeah,
the bridge on the River Kwai. during
Yeah.
World War II, built by the prisoners of war. Um, New Zealand's pretty strong with Anzac commemoration, so our Australia New Zealand Army Corps, so remembering World Wars One and Two. And we went to Kanchanaburi on our first visit, and we are actually walking around the cemetery there, and the curator of the museum and the cemetery, an Australian guy, spoke to us, and I had memorized this poem from since I was like 5 or 6 about World War One and Anzac Day in New Zealand, which is our like Remembrance Day, and he asked me if I could say the poem to him. So I said the poem to him, and then he actually invited me back on Anzac Day to recite the poem in front of like the delegates from the Australian, New Zealand embassies and everything. And I was like 9 years old, wearing a suit in the hot season in Kanchanaburi. So that was a pretty interesting experience. And of course, I forgot the poem halfway through, um, so I had to get a bit of a prod from my father. But other things are so much. I think the I was actually just telling this story yesterday. The first time I was here, uh, Dad asked me to buy a bottle of beer for him. So, like, to go down to the store and get a bottle of beer. So I was 9 years old, right? So I went down to the shop just down the road, and she'd seen me in there with Dad a couple of times, but she was still a bit, oh, I probably
Yeah.
shouldn't sell you this. But she did anyway. And to hide the fact she'd sold me a bottle of beer, she put it into a box. And the box happened to be a carton of cigarettes, like an empty carton of cigarettes. So she was disguising that she'd sold me alcohol by masking it as cigarettes. So I, I thought that pretty much summed up Thailand pretty well. But yeah, we traveled all over. I think we actually went to about 50 provinces in Thailand. Um, all over Cambodia as well, Siem Reap, Laos. I did the slow boat in Laos on the second trip
Yeah.
too, and I haven't done it recently, but from what I've heard, it's definitely a bit more of a party these days. Like there's a
Yeah. I mean, I did it. I did it. I guess 3 years ago now. Around the
yeah
first times I went to Bangkok, and that is fair to say. It wasn't like full on, but yeah,
yeah because when my father and I went, we went up the river on the slow boat and like from Luang Prabang up to Huac Sai, and I think there was like 6 or 7 people on the boat, and I don't think I saw anyone drink a beer for the 2 days of the trip. So
wait.
that
So
was definitely
you were going from Thailand to Laos or
no
Laos
the
to
other
Thailand?
way. Yeah, the other way, which I know is
Ah, okay.
the quiet way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. 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 Because definitely, the one I went was going from Thailand to Laos, and I
hmm
think historically that one is
yeah,
busier and
more packed
probably
out.
more of a party. Yeah,
A
that
pet
makes sense.
peeve I have actually, just randomly as an aside about that slow boat trip, is so many people say I'm taking the slow boat to Laos when
Yeah.
actually you get on the boat in Laos and off the boat in Laos, right? Or have they changed it now, right? Like you have to cross into Laos first
You
and then you
you
take the
cross
boat,
into the
right?
border. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's true.
yeah. So when everyone's like, I'm taking the slow boat to Laos, I'm like, well, actually, you're crossing a bridge to Laos, and then
We're taking the slow boat from Laos to Laos.
yeah,
Nice. All right. So tell me, and I think you kind of answered already, but how did those adventures and memories as a kid influence your adventures and the way you travel as you became of age and got older?
yeah, for sure. Well, before even looking at how it influenced travel, I think one major thing is I got bullied a lot at primary school and like intermediate, and I was always quite shy and withdrawn. And after I came back to New Zealand, after my second trip with my father in Thailand, like I had so much more confidence. I was a lot more outgoing, and I think it really shaped me into a more like well-rounded, like I know I was young, but it shaped me into more of a well-rounded person, I think. And yeah, my confidence and outgoingness really skyrocketed. So I think, yeah, that is translated into how I travel. Like, so definitely my father was not too shy to, you know, take the beaten path or to go off the beaten path or something like that. So I think that's influenced the way I travel a lot. But also that extra understanding of the Southeast Asian cultures and just those extra respect levels, I think that it taught me spending a bit longer here, more than just as a 2 week tourist, you know, but really looking into the culture. So it made me more aware of how my actions might be viewed by the locals or something like that. So more
Yeah,
of a considerate traveler, I guess it made me too.
definitely makes sense. And that is a perfect transition. Let's move into your topic, which is integrating with the Thai culture and understanding the Thai mentality. So, we're going to talk about as far as helpful phrases, cultural things to do or not do there, and the behavior of the Thai people in general, the Thai mentality. Um, Before we get into that, though, I'm sure once you move there, then you must have had some challenges, maybe something that you had to get adjusted to, or maybe still a work in progress. What are some of those things that you possibly had to face?
Yeah. Well, I guess my experience here now, like living and studying here, and I call it home now. So it's a lot different from when I was traveling and just kind of enjoying it, right? So
Yeah.
I think one which I'm still getting used to, I still will be for a while, is the concept of time here and punctuality. I can't remember the exact names. I remember we had and actually my girlfriend had an assignment at university one day looking at how different cultures perceive time, you know, whether it's like linear or something like that. But
Mhm.
yeah, it's definitely uh, Thai time does exist, right? So if the train's meant to leave at this time, you know, it could leave early, it could leave late. You never know. If the guy's meant to, I don't know, come and fix your aircon at 10 a.m., he could arrive at 9 a.m. or he might arrive 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So that's something I'm definitely still getting used to. And just
Yeah.
how, yeah, like if you're meeting with friends and you say you're going to meet at this time, they'll show up an hour later and it's, why are you upset? Like, what's the big deal kind of thing. So that's definitely one thing I'm getting used to. There's a lot. Um, Traffic, like as a pedestrian, I don't ride a motorbike or drive in Bangkok unless I'm going like on a trip out of the city. So I cross the road a lot on pedestrian crossings, or crosswalks as you guys call them, right?
Yeah.
So I it took me a while to let go of my frustrations when it's all right when you're traveling and it's a bit of a novelty, but when you have to cross the same intersection every morning to get to class and you nearly get hit every day, it grinds you down a bit. So I had to learn to just kind of let go of that and accept it for what it is as well.
If I get hit, I get hit.
Yeah, yeah, kind of thing. I have actually been hit a couple of
Oh.
times on pedestrian crossings because I don't know if it's just I have this righteousness where I'm like I will make ties give way to pedestrians one driver at a time or what. But like if they're going slow enough and I know I'm not going to get seriously injured, then I will exercise my right if it's green for me to walk across and I'll keep walking. There was one time I actually got hit by a taxi right in front of three police officers and they just waved the taxi on, um, of course. But I was like, I guess that sums up why it will never change.
Fair point. Man. All right. I'm gonna give you the reins. I can start you off if you want. Let's go with cultural do's and don'ts first, and then from there you can take it as you like.
Hmm. Yeah, cultural do's and don'ts is the longer I stay here, and I have to be careful because I sometimes find myself becoming a bit of like a bit too judgmental, or like I'm not Thai, but sometimes I find uh, that I'll have this negative perception of the stereotypical Western backpacker or something like that, and I
Mm.
think that's evolved from just being constantly surrounded a bit by that in Thailand. So um, as I said before, yeah, Khao San's a great place. You can go, you can let loose, you can have fun, and no one really cares. But that is not a representation of Thai society as a whole, right? And sometimes you see people in Khao San Road, for example, wearing a bikini. Um, there's no beach
Yeah,
near
I know.
Bangkok, and although that's evolved to be something that's okay in Khao San Road, and no one will really care that much, it's definitely not something that's all right in the general Thai society, unless, of course, you're down by the beach or on one of the islands. But it gets a bit difficult because, as I said, so if my friends want to go out to a nightclub or something, there's quite a lot of judgment involved in Thailand. Although they're like a free and easy country, they're pretty accepting. They do still have like a class structure, which especially in the people in Bangkok, like it's more prevalent in Bangkok, I think, with maybe successful families or those who have a higher opinion of themselves or something. They definitely don't appreciate the kind of foreign obnoxiousness which sometimes comes with backpackers. So Thai
Yeah.
culture is very conflict avoiding, like so they just kind of maipin lai, sabai sabai, which means like no worries, everything's okay, like you won't make a big deal about something. So yeah, they're pretty quiet and reserved in general. I mean, of course, you've seen some letting loose on Khao San Road, but yeah, where am I going with this? I think yeah, it's just important to enjoy yourself while you're traveling here, but also um, think what you might have as like a perception of yourself if you were like in your hometown and you're getting hundreds or thousands of drunken gap year tourists or something coming through every month or year, right? It might wear the Thai hospitality has definitely started to wear thin in some of those more traveled areas for sure. Um, so like do's and don'ts, I'd say generally keep your shirt on unless you're going for a swim. To be honest, like you might see Thai uncles with no shirt on, like the
Yeah.
older Chinese guys especially. But um, I yeah, I'm strong on the idea of like don't really care too much, have fun and enjoy yourself. But I think the longer I've lived in Thailand, the more I've become aware of how um, their perceptions can be influenced so strongly. So yeah, I see a lot of people with no shirt on in restaurants often, which Thai it's not really something Thais would accept unless it's like next to the beach.
Yeah.
Um, Also, obviously, yeah, just avoid conversations, public conversations, or outspoken conversations about the
Uh, yeah, the king.
yeah, the royal family and just the
Yeah.
even the political situation with ties. I mean, of course, if you want to talk with your fellow travelers, I'm not encouraging anything or discouraging anything. Um, but yeah, that's obviously a touchy topic here, and it carries some pretty strict penalties. One that I never realized until I actually did it myself. I dropped some money one day, and then I like the coin was rolling, and I stood on it, and I got told off by the person in the
Mm.
restaurant because I was standing on the king's face, of course. So that's important. Other things, I guess, just a lot of us Westerners, we can be pretty boisterous, pretty loud, or not too reserved at times, which definitely is a bit different from the general Thai culture. So just be aware of that, I guess. But having said all that, Thais don't really expect uh, even me as a foreigner who lives here. They don't expect me to why every time I would, like when a Thai usually would, which is the bow, like with the greeting with the hands up. Like
Yeah.
that they perfectly understanding if I don't do that. So you said some useful phrases.
Yeah.
Obviously, hello, thank you. So hello, sawadee kap if you are a male speaker, or sawadee ka if you're a female speaker. So it's just the polite endings that they put on the end, the ka and the kap. One thing that I find, especially American, people who try to speak a bit of Thai, is they try to say it super fast and in
Yeah.
some Asian sounding voice. It's you can really just say Sawadee Cup, like that's fine. You don't need to say Swadee Cup or something like that. Um,
Yeah.
and then thank you obviously is Khop Kun Cup for a male or Khop Kun Ka for a woman. And one that I think is cool or useful is just Maipin Lai, which is pretty much the way the Thais live by. It's no worries, right? They're not too fussed about most things. If you're late, you're late. If it's raining, it's raining. Just Maipin Lai. No worries. It's kind of similar to what we say in New Zealand, which is she'll be right. Um, as I'm talking about like Thai culture and do's and don'ts and stuff, it kind of it's a bit conflicting for me because there are a lot of what's the word? Like there's a lot of conflicts here or discrepancies. Um, for example, very strict rules, right? When you go to most temples, if you're a man, you can sometimes get away with shorts, but you should have a t-shirt on, right? But if you're a woman, then you should have like a long skirt or pants, but not tight-fitting pants, and your shoulders covered. Yet I've been to Thai temple festivals in rural Thailand where you arrive at 11 a.m. with an icebox full of beer. You walk into the temple grounds and you sit down on a mat on the temple grounds drinking beer while they have dancers on stage wearing like short shorts or hot pants and bikini tops
Hmm.
in a temple ground. So
It's interesting.
yeah,
No one. No
that
one.
is
They weren't like told off or anything.
no. This is organized an event, or they have like a massive stage and
Ah.
everything. This is an event organized by the temple, and there's
Wow.
monks there too. There's like monks watching the dancers, and these are like they're
Yeah.
gyrating their hips or whatever. Guys are like giving them tips inside a temple ground. So, and I've asked Thais on numerous occasions, well, how does that work? You know, like I
Yeah.
can't wear a tank top, but there's literally that going on, and we're all here drinking. But this is Thailand is a common answer to that kind of question. Um, Cultural do's and don'ts. I guess it's just don't be an idiot is what I'm saying. Like, um, and one thing is it even though it might hurt, if you do get into a conflict with a Thai, swallow your pride. Um, it's not worth it because it's never just one person that you're having an argument with. You might think it's just one guy, but if it turns to like
Yeah.
physical, it's 12 guys or half the bar. And I've been to Calcite a lot. I've had
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
few incidences there, like on 3 occasions. I think I've had physical altercations. But even though I may not remember everything the next day, I'm very aware, and I know that it's those altercations are always just with the foreigner. I'd never have a physical altercation with the Thai
Yeah.
because you're going to come off second best. And um, without saying there's any faults in the proceedings, the judicial proceedings in Thailand, uh, you, the odds are stacked against you if you're not Thai for sure. So yeah, just if the bill seems like 500 baht wrong, push it as much as you can. But if you have to, just swallow your pride because it's not worth it. Yeah,
My lie was it, right? Just be chill.
my pin lie, my pin lie. Yeah,
My pin lie.
yeah. Don't
Okay.
worry about it. Yeah.
And to go, I know you mentioned the helpful phrases and you talked about the why. You can bow while you say, kapun kap or kapun ka, but it's not necessary.
Yeah, that's it's I know it's people just trying to be super polite, right? Like if you've just arrived and you see the Thais doing it to you, if someone does it to you, like you're meeting someone, like if I brought you out to dinner and my friends said sawadee krap and why to you, then you would do it back. But if you're, I don't know, just checking into a hotel and the receptionists why to you, Thais wouldn't why them back in that situation. Like it's just a formality greeting. I mean, it's perfectly fine too, but yeah, you're definitely not expected to in that situation, and Thais don't do it either. Um, but it's definitely goes a long way, especially if you're off the beaten path a little bit and you somebody cup and you throw in a bow there, then you'll get a few smiles and it'll probably brighten up their day a little bit.
For sure. Besides those two, what are some other phrases that someone might hear a Thai say, and maybe it'd be helpful to know or get an idea what they're talking about?
Um, so a big one that you definitely will hear is farang, right? um, so farang is the Thai word. It's for Westerners or Caucasians. So did you get called a farang by Thais when you were here, Tristan?
Nah, not at all.
Yeah, yeah, okay. So it's generally more used for like Caucasians or Westerners, but a lot of people don't like it. Like a lot of foreign expats because it has like some negative connotations to it.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, just if you are in a situation and you're the only Westerners around and you hear the word farang, you know they're talking about you for sure. Um, Other important ones. Definitely Taurai Cup or Taurai Ka. So that's how much is it, right? And then
Mhm.
obviously you probably need to learn the numbers to go with that so you can understand the answer. But even it's funny sometimes, even if you're obviously a foreigner, just asking the price in Thai can definitely lower the price sometimes.
Hmm.
So in some situations, yeah, they'll try and price gouge a little bit, bump it up for the tourists. But if you can, yeah, say เท่าไหร่ cup and often the price might even be a little bit cheaper than what the menu says or what the price sticker says. Uh, that being said, like a lot of tourists, when they first arrive in Thailand, they think they should barter for like absolutely everything, right?
Yeah.
So I would say if the taxi doesn't want to turn on the meter or you're taking a tuk-tuk, then yeah, you can definitely barter the price. But if the taxi turns on the meter, then that's the price, right? Hotel rooms and hostels, you can't usually barter the price unless maybe you're staying a bit longer or something like that. But the price is usually the price, and that's the same for restaurants or like even food stalls. You if I mean, it's $1 anyway. So, what are you trying to
Sure.
save? But like, yeah, I've seen sometimes one guy like he was buying maybe like 4 skewers of meat or something, and he wanted like the fifth one free. And I was, yeah, Thais would pay the full price there, and it's pretty standard. Um, just in some of the touristy trap places, they might try and exorbitantly charge the price, and then there might be room to negotiate there. But generally, food, accommodation, and metered taxis, yeah, you can't negotiate the price on those. But if you're at the
Yeah.
market, for sure, haggle like your life depends on it.
Definitely true. Um, is there anything noticeable as far as like general body language that a local might do there, and that could be telling of something? Anything beyond or your typical stuff?
Not really. It's just what I said before. They're a bit more reserved than
Yeah.
Westerners are. I think that's an Asian thing in general. Like
Yeah.
if I'm riding the BTS here, the only people that I will ever hear talking loudly are foreigners, including myself. I'm not going to change that. But yeah, it's you would never get any New York subway style busking on on the Thai
Yeah.
public transport. Any body language that would no, not really. Just Thai people are generally like super friendly, especially when you get away from the like I can't stress that enough. Like if your only experience of Thailand is Phuket, Chiang Mai, and like PP and maybe Samui and Phang then I think that's not a fair representation of um, like how friendly Thai people are in general and how welcoming they are.
And yeah, I think that's part of the reason too why I love it so much. The people, I feel like home when I'm there. Definitely, big part of it is just the locals that are around. Like I can pass by the lady who sells chicken on a stick, and she, fully smiling, saying hello. Just things like that happen so much there. So they're definitely some of the friendliest people in the world, I would say.
Oh yeah, definitely, and that's part of the reason my father fell in love with the country when he did, and part of the reason, like a big part of the reason that I've stayed as long as I have. Yeah, just super welcoming and friendly, and yeah, Mike and Lai, they don't care too much. They're not too worried, right? Like they don't get. That's the one cool thing about living and studying here is you go out for after uni or after work drinks every day of the week if you want to. Like there's the weekend exists, but it's definitely much more relaxed. Okay, maybe things don't get done on time all the time, but yeah, I would imagine the stress levels are a lot lower per capita here than in more Western societies.
I would assume so. Um, how much time you got? Because I know we're cutting it close, but I think there's a few more things we could hit on. But I don't want to take up
I'm
too much of your
I'm
time.
I'm easy, man. It's just early afternoon for me, so I'm good as gold. Yeah,
Awesome, my pen lie.
might be lie. Yeah, yeah.
All right, let's talk about the typical meals. Not so much. Well, I guess yeah, the type of food, but what would a local eat typically for the morning, lunch, dinner, so on.
Yeah, so I'm sure you're probably just as familiar, perhaps, as
Yeah.
I am. But so yeah, first thing is pad thai. Pad thai is not Thailand's national dish. It might be the dish that we eat when we eat Thai food back at home all the time, but it's not a common meal for most Thais. Like it's not something they'll eat perhaps even every week. Um, so there's a few different major cuisines in Thailand, like areas of Thai food. So you have Isan food, which is northeastern, northern food, so Chiang Mai, Chiang Rai kind of area, central Thai, and then southern Thai. Most people don't get to try much southern Thai. It's super spicy, pardon, and like super strong flavors. Central Thai, so like the standard Thai, yeah, I guess for breakfast they don't tend to go like sweet or just a small snack like we often would. They'll have a full meal for breakfast. So maybe something like fried sausage, a fried egg, and rice, if it a bit more Western, or you can have the rice soup or jok, right? So that's rice porridge or rice soup. But even that will have some herbs in it, some meatballs, and maybe even a preserved egg. So that's quite a common one. I was so shocked the first time I saw that as a hangover food, like when I'm stumbling out of Khao San Road and with some Thai friends, and they're like, "Yeah, let's eat rice porridge with a preserved egg in it." No thanks. But yeah, so that for breakfast or omelet on rice is pretty common as well. But yeah, definitely rice will probably even feature in the breakfast. And then lunch, there's so many options, right? So soups, curries, fried dishes. But what I've heard it termed before by some Thai friends, like the Thai hamburger, is pad krapao or pad krapao kai dao. So that's um, absolute classic, one of my favorites. It's stir fried. Often it's usually it's pork with chilies, a little bit of garlic, Thai holy basil, and it's probably some MSG, served with rice and a fried egg. And I think that's definitely a go-to for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for me. It's usually a bit spicier, but you can get it on the not spicy side.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that I think is maybe because of what Thai restaurants serve in our home countries. So you don't usually get carrot in that many Thai stir fries or Thai dishes, where you'll see carrot quite often in stir fries back at home.
Mm.
Same with capsicum and courgette and stuff like that. It's usually the vegetables are pretty minimal, I'd say, in a lot of the Thai stir fried dishes. Would you agree, Tristan?
Um, yes. I mean, obviously, you can always ask for vegetables, but
Yeah.
typically, yeah.
Like often it's just maybe some cabbage or kale, garlic and onion always, and then maybe sprinkle of broccoli, cauliflower, and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what else? There's so many different, like then you got like anything on the grill, so often like a whole barbecued fish and like tom yums and stuff like that. That would probably be more of a dinner item. So again, dinner can be any fried dish with rice, stir fried noodles,
Mm-hmm.
soups. I think soups are great as well. The
Yeah.
Hainanese chicken and rice, right? Or the fried chicken and rice is always a go-to. Um, but then Isan food, I think, is a big, because Isan, the northeast of Thailand, accounts for a lot of the workers who come into Bangkok or other parts, and it's also where most of the farming is done in Thailand. So it's a real big kind of like engine of productivity in Thailand. So my girlfriend's actually from Isan, and their staples are somtam, which is the spicy papaya salad,
Mm-hmm.
lab, which is another kind of spicy meat salad, and then obviously sticky rice. Sticky rice is really great. It's good with
Yeah.
mango, obviously, but yeah, they eat it with the salad and the lab, and then grilled meat too. So she could happily eat super spicy papaya salad for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and she'd be pretty happy about that. Um,
Mm.
but yeah, tom yum is yeah another one of the classics. If you ask Thais what is a popular or famous Thai food, tom yum will probably often be their first answer
Okay.
over pagrapao. Yeah, tom yum or somtam. And then the curries aren't eaten as often as you might think. The southern food is a lot of curries,
Mm.
um, but yeah, like your green curry and your red curry are not super common Thai dishes, especially for Isan people. Uh, yeah, they wouldn't eat those soupy curries that often. Um, but cow soy is another big favorite of mine. If you're up in the north, cow soy is it's a must try. Um, did you enjoy that in Chiang Mai, Tristan? Khao soi? Or?
Uh, I stayed. It's funny because the first thing you mentioned about was pad thai. The very and Chiang Mai, I only went in my first visit, like the first time I ever came to Thailand, and literally the only thing I would eat the first time I came to Thailand was pad thai.
Yeah, because it's
Literally
all you
to a
know,
point,
right? Like,
yeah, literally to a point, and I liked it from back home, but I ate it literally to a point where for a while, like I was turned off by it. Like one day I just bit in and was like, ugh, and just I lost the taste for it. So I know I went to this was in Chiang Mai when it happened. So I'm probably gonna say I did not get a chance to taste much other cuisine. That one specifically while I was in Chiang Mai, but I'm kind of glad. I mean, I ate pad thai again now, but I'm kind of glad that did happen because obviously, um, I started eating more different different
yeah, yeah, yeah,
dishes, and then eventually got turned on to the idea of obviously there's more than just pad thai. So
yeah, for sure. And pad thai is, I think, it's so different here than actually back at home. Like pad thai does
yeah.
is not usually super saucy in Thailand, and it's not generally spicy as well. You generally put the spice on after. So,
Hmm.
but khao soy is this like creamy spicy soup from northern Thailand with like egg noodles, like stewed chicken, and then crispy egg noodles on top. And oh, that is just, I'm getting hungry talking about it.
I'll definitely have to give it a try whenever I get back. Okay, let's do. Sports and hobbies. I know obviously Muay Thai is a big one.
Yeah, actually, that being said, I've never actually met a Thai person who fights Muay Thai. Maybe because they're always in the gym and not on Khao San Road. Um, but yeah, it's more than just a sport or a hobby, right? Like it's a way of life, and it's such a
Yeah.
big part of the culture. So um, you can always go down like a little alley, and you'll hear like 10 guys crowded around a TV with they have like really unique Thai exclamations when they're watching sport, like the "oi" or something like that, which you won't hear in many other
Yeah.
places. Um, but yeah, they're although that I maybe it's because I'm not super into it, but I feel like it's not as in my face as say rugby is in New Zealand or football in the UK.
Yeah. No,
But
that's
it's
fair.
definitely a big part of the culture, and also like watching it as well. Like the gambling that goes on the side, or just the drinks associated with it, like hanging out with friends. So it's definitely a big part of
Hmm.
Thai culture, especially for the men. It's definitely much more of a male
Yeah.
following.
You said you're not too much into it. Have you ever been to stadium for one of the fights or anything like that? Or
Yeah, I've well, they used to have the free fights not too far
yeah,
from back home or Khao San Road. So I would go there most weeks if I got the chance.
yeah.
I've never actually been to one of the proper stadium fights. I think you went to the televised fights, right? When
I didn't go to like Ratchada as far as the big stadium, but I
yeah,
definitely went to the one you mentioned, Muay Thai Super Champ, close to the back home and everything. There was one at the is it Super 8
yeah, I think so.
mall,
Yeah,
whatever. Yeah,
Supreme.
whatever.
Supreme? Yeah.
I think so. Whatever. What that one was way more gimmicky. Like it was always a Thai fighter against a foreigner, which the one at that was close to us was kind of the same. But the one at Super 8, they had like ring girls. It was more of a production, if you will, for the
Oh yeah,
TV.
yeah,
Um, but no, they were all pretty exciting and intense. So
yeah. Maybe it's because I just had no invested interest in the people fighting, so I didn't. I'm
that
not.
makes sense.
I
Yeah,
definitely enjoyed it every time I went, and
yeah.
um, yeah, if obviously if you pick a guy before the fight starts and you're rooting for him to win, it makes it a bit more enjoyable.
I feel like that's how we always did it, just for the sake of it.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, to your point, just the crowd as far as the Thai people, because the Thais are pretty much fill the majority of whatever stadium or area you are, and then you kind of have the section for the foreigners who are also kind of spread out. But as you said, there's moments as the fighters are doing their thing, and actually, it really depends on where you go because there's one that is there's also the Channel 7 stadium. That one is more, I think, has more of an authentic feel because it's really a lot of ties. You see the gambling going on, even though you have no idea what system they're using, how it works. But um,
Yeah,
when the fighters are doing their thing, the crowd, as you said, is going like, "Hey, hey," going back and forth.
yeah. It's a
So you
really
just kind of feel that energy.
interesting noises that they
Yeah.
make that I've not heard with other sports. But yeah, I have one close friend whose brother's a professional Muay Thai fighter, and I've not been to watch him fight yet, but yeah, she gets really into the fights, obviously, and posts some cool stuff from the stadiums ringside when he has a
Mhm.
big bout.
Nice. Yeah. So for anyone listening, if you ever go to Bangkok, definitely go to a Muay Thai fight if that's your thing. Obviously, it's pretty much all over Thailand. You can find some in Chiang Mai and wherever as well. So I do want to touch on a little bit as far as the views of the ladyboy culture there as well.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. It again, it's a bit contradictory at times. Like it's super. Obviously, there's a lot of Thailand's famous for its ladyboys. There's a lot of ladyboys and transgender people in Thai society now, and they're accepted and welcomed. But I think in a way that maybe wouldn't be seen always is okay in Western culture.
Mm.
For example, um, it's still pretty common here for someone to just openly ask if someone's what their sexual orientation is, or have a presumption of it just based on the way they act, but like not keep it to themselves or anything. Just be completely straight up, like, oh, this person is gay or whatever because they act like that, with no
Mm.
justification. So it doesn't come from, I think it doesn't come from a place of hate or prejudice, but it's just the society hasn't fully gotten rid of those kind of what's acceptable to say or not yet. Um,
Yeah.
so obviously, ladyboys are very common here, but yeah, you still get some kind of immature reactions quite often. I think like sniggers and people, which is obviously still pretty prevalent in the West as well, for sure.
Yeah.
There's much worse, and I think that's the thing. It's not fueled from a place of negativity, but it's can be misconstrued, especially if you're like, I had one friend who came to Thailand who was I think she like doesn't identify with a pronoun.
Mm.
But when they came to Thailand, Thailand has these strong idea of, for example, for lesbian couples, there's a Tom and a D. So a Tom
Mm.
is the one who must look masculine, right? And then the D is the one who
Yeah.
still looks feminine. So
Yeah.
my friend came here and they were like, I don't really conform with any gender stereotypes, but would say, no, you're a Tom. You have to be a Tom. You've got short hair. That's what you are. And even if you're not gay or queer, or if you're just a woman who has short hair in Thailand,
It's
people
the
will call
same.
you a
Yeah.
Tom. Yeah.
Yeah.
So but I think, yeah, as I keep saying, it doesn't come from a place of hate. So yeah, it's very accepting for ladyboys. Although I have heard in terms of in the professional world, like the work environment, it can be a bit more difficult for them. But I don't have any personal
Gotcha.
experience or knowledge of that. Yeah,
No, I would agree as well, especially compared to over here in the States, Western culture.
yeah,
Overall, in Asia, it's way more accepting, and you'll see, um, in any situation really, you'll see like they're not afraid to really, just be out, in the open and everything. So
yeah.
yeah,
From what I've experienced, obviously an outsider looking in, but yeah, there's not much hate towards it. There might be misunderstanding
yeah,
or like
yeah,
misconceptions or something, but there's no people like standing in the street with signs anti it or something like that.
yeah. Let's do one more. Since you kind of mentioned way back as an 11-year-old going up to a 15-year-old, who I
Yeah.
believe was Thai as well, right? Um, let's just touch a little bit on like the courtship and dating. Not to get into your personal situation, but I guess what is the general approach if someone was to approach a girl or a guy? Like, what is the time mentality with that?
So generally, I mean, a lot of it's, especially now, it's more. It's a bit slower here. It can be, in terms of like dating. But you'd always start by asking for their Instagram or their line. Um, you It's not super common to like just take a girl home from the club in Thailand. You might find some where that happens in Khao San Road or something, but generally a Thai courtship would work where you maybe you reached out to them at the club, you saw them, you spoke to them a little bit, and then you got their line as the messaging app we use in Thailand, or their Instagram, and then yeah, it's a bit slower. It's not similar if you're using Tinder. If you're using Tinder in Thailand, okay, you might have to weed through some who are working and some who are still pre-op,
Yeah,
but it's definitely a bit slower. It's not like I think in the West where you can maybe just arrange something for that afternoon where you just meet up at someone's house. So you kind of, it's a bit cuter as well, I think, which is pretty like that's throughout Thai culture, perhaps. You'll they still use stickers and emojis when they're 30 years old in a business conversation online, or I've been to some girls' houses. I think one was like 25 or 26, and maybe had a 15, 20 um, stuffed animals around her bed, which is not not super common back at home. So yeah, it's a bit cuter, cheesy pickup lines and stuff like that. But it's definitely one thing. I don't know if you experienced this when you were here, but most Thai girls who like or are attracted to foreigners really love their white foreign guys. Like
Mm.
that's really what they look for, and they're not shy to say that. Like I remember
Yeah.
one time I was in Khao San Road, and I was like, I'd been having a few drinks with this girl, something like that, and then a guy came to the table next to us, and she like completely ignored me, and I was like, oh, I'm probably going to head off now. Like not talk to me for like the last hour or something. And she's like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, sorry, it's because I like white guys more. And I was like, whoa, okay, that's just strange. She's like, yeah, you're a bit too tan. I was like,
Mm.
okay, oh, I know my cue. So that's one thing. I mean, it's obviously not all Thai girls, but
Yeah.
um, it's definitely bred into the culture here that whitening creams and all of that, because it has that association with classes, and like if
Yeah.
you're tan, then you probably work outside in the fields. But yeah, so that's something which is still changing. I think even the Black Lives Matter movement in the US, I noticed it sparked a bit of a debate around Thai's views on that. Here, I saw
Hmm.
a few articles and stuff, so that was quite interesting. Um,
Mm.
but yeah, if Thai girls are pretty, they know like where things are leading towards. Like they don't lead you on, is what I would say. Um, Compared with back at home, like they probably won't go out for 10, 15 dates. I'm trying not to sound like a misogynist here. They probably won't go out for 10 to 15 dates and then just stop talking to you.
Yeah.
They'll be pretty straight up if they're still interested or something like that. Did you have much
All right.
experience in that department, Tristan?
No, not with the locals anyway.
Well, I guess you had a big entourage that you went to Khao with of other backpackers most evenings.
I mean, there were a few, I guess, expats and yes, but we won't get into that much right now. If there or unless there is anything else you want to add, as far as, of course, integrating with the Thai culture and understanding the mentality, then we are pretty much almost done with the interview. Anything else you want to add with that?
Not particularly on that matter, but I'm not sure where we're going next. But I just wanted to say one thing. Like I know most of obviously the topics I've discussed today have been Thailand and my love of Bangkok and Udon Thani, for example. But just briefly, I'd like to say the country which I've actually really enjoyed. I was only there for a short time, but traveling in was Myanmar.
Yeah.
And I'd strongly recommend if you're coming over to the Southeast Asia area, then definitely check it out. I know a lot of people, for like political reasons, they don't necessarily want to support tourism in Myanmar because of the regime that's in power there. That being said, if you do make the decision to go and travel the country, you won't be disappointed, I don't think. I've not met anyone who has been, and I really, really loved it. The people are still super genuine. Like it hasn't been over exploited by tourists, and it's a good balance, I think, between still being a bit of a challenge to travel around. Like it's definitely not as easy as Thailand, but still easy enough where you can feel comfortable to do it yourself, and it's not too bad. So yeah, Myanmar is a great place to check out.
Good shout on Myanmar. I actually, it was very quick, but I actually went just for, t- was it 2 weeks? It might not have even been 2 weeks. I think a week. It's very fast. It wasn't planned. Um, I mean, we were just talking about dating and stuff. Um, someone I went for somebody
Yeah,
for the time, but there was no, it was definitely a great experience. And as you said, the people there are very welcoming. Basically, we ended up in this local's house. She happened to see us walking. I think we were in Bagan specifically, and yeah, she was just curious. She invited us in. She had not a young child, but I think a teen or maybe like tween age, 12 or whatever. And so we interacted with them, and it was lovely. She gave us tea. So as you said, it's uh, very untouched, and the people there are still very um, just
genuine and like
welcoming and very
yeah,
authentic.
yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah. It's definitely a real like I wouldn't live there as I do in Thailand because Thailand's a bit more comfortable. But yeah, it's a great experience to travel for sure.
Awesome. All right. So we're almost at the end, but first I want to give you a few rapid fire questions, and then I'll give you some 30 seconds of glory. Does that sound good?
Yeah, sounds good, man. Let's get on.
All right. So, first question, pad thai or toasties?
Oh, pad Thai, pad Thai.
Chang or singa? Or sing, I should
Singer,
say.
singer.
Yes, good man.
Yeah.
um, if you were a model, what would you be modeling?
Underwear. Go hard or go home.
All right. And then last one, give us a helpful technique or advice in the realm of video production for someone who's just starting to vlog or make some sort of videos.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. I'd just say think a little bit about the story you want to tell before you film it, and how you can best translate to your finished video, and then don't overcomplicate things. Right? You don't need a $3,000 camera. If you just want to tell a raw story, your phone or your GoPro or whatever, just make use of what you have, and you can like you see those quick clips on Instagram or Facebook, the ones that like the travel pages reshare. Most of the time, they're just one panning shot and maybe a bit of editing and a soundtrack, and they get millions of views. So, yeah, good content doesn't need to be complicated.
All right, you did it, Manfred. We've come to the end of the
Woo!
interview. You gave us extra time as well. That's always awesome. I'm going to give you 30 seconds of glory. So share what you got going on or drop some words of wisdom.
I hadn't really prepared anything for this, but I am still posting kind of on YouTube. I've got a couple of vlogs in the pipeline, so they'll be going up soon. So if you'd like to check that out, just search Adventures of Tits on YouTube. Other than that, a bit of wisdom. With all that's going on in the world, it's a crazy time, and we're uncertain when we can travel again. But just give yourself small things to look forward to, even if it's just driving to a local attraction on the weekend, or getting in a game of your favorite sport or something. Make sure to break up the monotony of day-to-day life and just give yourself things to look forward to.
Awesome. We'll definitely leave a link for the Adventures of Tits as well in the show notes. So
Awesome.
don't worry about that. All right, bro.
Take
Thanks
care.
again. Awesome catching up. We'll catch up again soon, and at some point you'll see me again in Bangkok. So
Yeah. I'll
all
shout
right,
you a bucket.
for sure. All right, take care. I'll catch you later.
See you, bro.
All right, there it is. Big thanks once again to Manfred for literally sweating the heat and joining the show. I'm actually surprised we didn't talk about Songkran, but I know that's more of a countrywide celebration, so I'm sure we'll talk about that in the future. But for now, I do want to touch on a few things. First off, as someone who spent a fair amount of time in Thailand, Bangkok specifically, myself, everything he said was pretty much on point. There's not really much I can add to it. I know as far as the hospitality of the locals getting a bit weary with the amount of tourists, that point he mentioned, myself, I've seen a lot of instances, more so in times where, people are drunk or had a few where the locals, mainly the any bar staff or things like that. Their patience can be tested. And myself, in my natural helpful state, I've helped diffuse or try to diffuse many situations where maybe someone was a little too drunk and trying to push the buttons of the Thai staff that were working for whatever reason, whether I knew the person or not. A lot of times I didn't know the person at all. They weren't even part of the group that I was with as far as from the hostel. No idea. But just being somewhere where, I happen to some extent know the staff, even if I didn't know them that well, if we were somewhere that we typically wouldn't go to, just trying to calm either them down, or if I did know the staff, or the random drunk person. But also just with the idea of the haggling as well. I've seen, because there's also some tuk-tuk guys that, they're around the corner where I would typically stay. So if I do feel like taking a tuk-tuk, I would go to them and we'll do our thing. But I've also seen at times where I'm passing by and I just happen to kind of hear or see them being frustrated because a local may have tried to take it down too far. Literally talking on the point of, them being from more of a Western country, whereas in compared to Thailand, of course, the wealth standard is different. Quite a fair amount of times that I think about it, whether it was the tuk-tuk driver or, again, maybe being at a bar somewhere, or just any scenario where people are trying to barter to a certain extent. That's like, okay, like, in reality, it is a few bucks. And as a traveler, you're not really... I know we're trying to save, but at the same time, we are the ones traveling around wherever we're going. So I can understand the principles of it, but just try to keep that in mind, I would say, in the bigger scope of things. Now, as far as this point on the king, I know Manfred didn't really say a definite do or don't speak about him or the royal family in public, but I'm just going to tell you, don't do it. Don't do it. I don't know anyone specifically, but I've heard stories, or there's one particular story. Now, this person, from what I hear, was legitimately just he was a traveler, I should add, but he was legitimately saying negative things out in public. Just happened to pass by the wrong people, as far as I believe the military or some form of authority, and he was taken off to jail. So, and again, it's not in general, it's not the most pleasant place to be, but you probably don't want to be in jail on your adventures of Thailand. So, yeah, I wouldn't definitely just be very careful. Now, I do want to focus on the energy a bit and the people as far as the locals. I know I said it earlier, but the Thai people are really the nicest and most trustworthy people I've ever been around, which is part of why I just love Thailand and Bangkok specifically so much. I know I've been unlucky at times where I've had on like shorts, which I typically don't wear at all, but I would have my money clip, and whether I was out or just out somewhere going having food, a few times my money clip would drop out of my pocket and I wouldn't necessarily realize right away and walk off, maybe be gone for a while or take a few steps and then notice, but not necessarily know what happened. But I've been lucky enough where I've been able to trace my steps back, or someone called out and said, hey, you forgot, or hey, you dropped your money clip. No problem. I think the last time I did it, I do remember it was at least like a half-hour gap from the last time I used it to the time I realized that I didn't have it. But for a moment, it's like I didn't really freak out. Honestly, I don't actually keep much money and then just a card in there. So worst case, you just cancel the card. But I didn't freak out. I kind of thought, okay, we were here. I was able to trace my steps back. And as soon as I walked in the last place that we were, someone said, oh, yeah, your money clip, it's over there. Now, I know some people might just say, oh, that's just pretty lucky. But there's so many other instances, maybe unfortunately in general for us as travelers. But I've met others who, whether they were going to the ATM and taking out money and just got distracted and walked away with their card still in the machine, not realizing. And then some moments later, a random Thai person is running them down with the card in hand and saying, "Hey, you forgot your card." When once you hear a few of these stories, it's like, okay, yeah, you're lucky. But the more you keep hearing it, I think, at least for me, the more you realize, this is sort of telling of the locals here. Because I know more than likely back home, maybe I would have gotten lucky once or twice, but more times than not, it would have been gone that first time I dropped it. So that was one of the first things I kind of felt towards the people and the environment there. Also, in general, just the kindness and the openness of the people. Of course, being around in Old Town, I was able to see a lot of the same faces, even if I didn't know them well at all. I would always get the hellos and the whys or the bows towards me, and I would return it back to them. But again, like I said, it could be the chicken lady with the with the chicken on the sticks. She would say hello. She would say something nice to me about my dimples. She liked my dimples. I remember that. But she was always so happy. I know in the hostel I would stay at, back home backpackers, shameless plug. But the hostel I would stay at, right across was an apartment building, and there was an old lady who is the tenant there, Padang. And I know a lot of times, initially, the first few times I would only see her was if it was later at night and the crowd just happened to be a little too loud, and she would come out waving a cane or maybe a back scratcher, I don't know. But, just to get us to quiet down as a crowd. But over time, eventually, during the day, sometimes she would come over and sit and just relax and hang. She knew the owners there. And again, over time, just me being there for so long, eventually I would strike up conversations with her best I could. And just a sweet lady, a grandma. There were times where I would stay in the actual building if I wanted, in my own room and just my own space. And anytime I would see her, she would always offer some fruit, Thai fruit. It's delicious. And even later on, that same building, there was a lady who worked there, basically their housekeeping, the cleaner. And I don't know why, but we would strike up a conversation here and there, and I started noticing her at times when I would go out to Muay Thai with people. So I'd see her there and just like, yeah, like, hey, and then eventually we struck up a conversation around that back on the street where we would usually stay. So from that point, we built some form of a connection through that. And then each morning, if she would see me, once whenever she was done with her cleaning or maybe taking a break, she would bring anything that she would find, cigarettes, random stuff that would be useful, and just give it to me. I don't even smoke, but and I wouldn't say it was weird, definitely random. And it was just her way of like, here, have these, whatever it was. Like, again, it could be random items, but actually like maybe left deck of cards or something like that. But specifically the cigarettes, I do have the bad habit sometimes. I may smoke one or two here and there. So I think one day she saw me smoking one, and from that point, she just made it her mission to give me cigarettes or related accessories if she saw me. But it was thoughtful. I always appreciated the gesture. She actually gave me a lot of lighters, which was definitely useful. So that was cool. But just things like that. Also, some of the restaurants going, Manfred mentioned you might get a discount. I got them all the time just from them knowing me or seeing me. Simple things like that is what I enjoy about the people. And in general, it's obviously with them, but when you're out and about, you get a lot of those, or at least I've been able to have a lot of those moments where it's something that's a longer interaction, or just a simple smile or acknowledgement, if you will. It would be foolish to not say that, of course, the travelers that I've met in my time there as well played a big part in my experience and just the energy I felt. And I won't go into much on that, but I think if you do travel over there, you stay for, it doesn't have to be that long, but just some period of time, you may encounter that as well. So just keep that in mind. But with the energy in general that I get from there, again, it's definitely the people, those situations that I mentioned, but also the atmosphere. I am a city guy. I get it both from downtown and Old Town. Old Town is way more relaxed, as we talked about, and downtown can be a bit more crazy. So I know it's not for everyone, but that in itself, those nights on Kosan, I countless times dancing in the rain or jumping in puddles there or Rambutri. So that all adds into the experience for me, I would say. And really is it's just the vibe of carefree and talking with people till sunrise. I don't know. I think everyone has a place that, if they're lucky enough to anyway, that gives them that sort of energy as well, from both the people and the actual surroundings or environment, which I think is so important for people to be in the right environment, and that will help you sort of blossom in your way. So that's absolutely what I think Bangkok does for me, and having met some people, it's done for many others as well. Which, while we're on it real quick, I do want to say, for those who have this, because I know I've met a lot of travelers as well who initially had this negative feeling of Bangkok for whatever reasons. And I know, unfortunately, a lot of the times, based from my conversations with those people, I would ask, why do you not like Bangkok? And it's like, oh yeah, well, I had a friend who stayed for 1 or 2 days. They pretty much just said to make your way out of there as soon as possible. Or also, like I mentioned, I don't like cities. I just don't want to be in the city. I'll give you, I can understand not wanting to be in the city. Now, you don't have to stay in CBD. I actually wouldn't even recommend to stay there. Old Town is definitely relaxed. But for those who are saying, that you don't want to stay, and you're basing it off of 1 or 2 days that someone stayed in the past, or even the 1 or 2 days that you stayed, as with any place, you got to give it more time. And 1 or 2 days is enough time to make a decision. But I think a lot of those people who said that really didn't do anything in the 1 or 2 days, because they already had that perception of, I'm not going to like Bangkok because it's just a big city. There's so much that we didn't cover, but I think from what was shared by Manfred in the interview, hopefully gives a better idea of that it's not just a big city or just a big party. So I would highly recommend that if you're on that side of the fence where you're just turned off by the idea of being in Bangkok, to spend more time or do things in whatever time you have, whether it's 1 day or the 2 days or longer, and actually try to do something. I know people who were on that side of the fence, and once they actually spent more time and did more things, they completely changed their mind. So you still might have the same feelings, and that's fine, but the main point is to actually give it a shot and not let those, ideals that you may already have for whatever reasons turn you off from it. So as it should for any place, and probably a lot of situations. Just, you gotta give it a chance, I would say. So anyways, if you have any questions, comments, or stories related to any of the topics today, traveling as a kid, Thailand, and integrating with the culture and the Thai mentality, if you have a place that you connect with, like I talked about earlier, give me a shout and send them my way. Contact at backpackersociety.site. You can also leave a voice memo if you want through the site. That's always fun. But I'll give them a read or listen, and maybe they'll end up in a following show. Thanks again to Manfred for joining me today. Thank you for listening. And until next time, be well. This has been the Backpacker Society Show. Click the link in the episode description and head over to backpackersociety.site to see our show notes, where you'll get access